The most profound spiritual secret Edgar Cayce ever revealed was not buried in the distant past or projected into some unattainable, far-off future. What if I asked you to consider that the timeline you assume you are merely existing within, the predictable humdrum of daily schedules, bills, and linear progress, is actually the precise, sacred culmination of a 70-year energetic preparation? I am proposing that the Great Awakening Edgar Cayce foresaw for a specific, pivotal generation, those souls born between 1957 and 1977, is not an event waiting to happen, but the intensely charged reality you are currently breathing. Your logical, terrestrial mind, that crucial, pragmatic entity obsessed with empirical documentation and historical footnotes, is already attempting to file this declaration under myth, generational cliché, or simply coincidence. You are tempted to dismiss the unique, often excruciating pressure you feel as merely the burden of the modern age, a predictable midlife crisis, or perhaps just acute psychological burnout, X. But I must guide you past that simplistic categorization. What we are discussing here is not pathology or accident. It is divine appointment and spiritual purpose. Why? It is the subtle but undeniable signature of a soul that willingly volunteered generations ago for this current, critical cycle of global transition. Think of your own life right now, not as a flat road of merely personal concerns, but as the cosmic fulcrum upon which two massive spiritual eras pivot. This generation, your generation, was prophesied to embody the transition from pure materialism to conscious spiritual mastery. Do you ever experience a sudden, aching certainty that you possess knowledge or spiritual memories that simply could not have originated in this lifetime? That deep, unsettling recognition is the proof, not of delusion, but of activated potential. Cayce left us a hidden key, a series of 7 unmistakable signatures, visible only to those who are currently living inside the fulfillment of the prophecy. These signs are not abstract astronomical calculations. They are emotional earthquakes, psychic echoes, and radical shifts in consciousness that are currently manifesting in your day-to-day reality. They are the undeniable evidence that you are the chosen recipients of this extraordinary spiritual legacy. Consider this. Do you find yourself suddenly intolerant of the petty dramas, the superficial conversations, and the shallow materialism that once defined the world around you? This heightened sensitivity is not exhaustion or generalized fatigue, X. It is the rapid activation of your higher senses, shedding the density of the old age and preparing you for the transcendent work you came here to perform. Why? The mystery is not whether Cayce's prophecy is true, but whether you are willing to recognize the signs that confirm you are the fulfillment of it. We are about to unlock those 7 undeniable proofs. Are you ready to stop searching for your purpose and finally step into the identity that has been waiting for you all along? It is a glorious thing to speak of purpose and identity, but I know the exact psychological moment that occurred when I asked you to step into the role waiting for you. The instant the excitement of possibility faded, a relentless, icy current of doubt rushed in to fill the vacuum. Your analytical mind, that loyal guardian trained by decades of reductionist thought, immediately began to laugh. I know that laugh. It is the sound of the ego attempting to protect itself from transcendence, demanding receipts and empirical proof for a reality it was never designed to perceive. The very thought that you, born between 1957 and 1977, could possibly be the linchpin generation predicted by the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce, seems utterly audacious. You are being tempted right now to rationalize away the deep, uncomfortable feeling that brought you here, the pervasive sense that you are standing on the wrong planet. Society has provided you with a neat, sterile set of labels for this feeling. They call it generalized anxiety disorder, or chronic dissociation, or perhaps merely the existential angst of midlife, X. But I stand before you now as your guide, and I must tell you this. Your chronic displacement is not a pathology, it is simply a memory, a cosmic memory vibrating at a frequency the current reality cannot quite match. Why? Think of yourself as a highly sophisticated instrument built to play music in a key that has not yet been invented on Earth. When you encounter the mundane noise of daily life, you experience a phantom ache, a longing for a homeland you cannot physically locate. This internal dissonance is terrifying to the logical mind, which insists that all comfort must come from external confirmation. It tells you that if you cannot find your peace on a map, then you must be broken. But your deep, unrelenting sense of difference is merely your soul recognizing the inherited blueprint of its past lives, the echoes of ancient Lemuria or the resonance of Atlantis, speaking through your current consciousness. Do you ever find yourself struggling to follow rules that seem utterly senseless, or feeling an inexplicable visceral grief over the state of the world that far outweighs any immediate personal trauma? This feeling is not emotional fragility. It is the spiritual surplus of a soul that has been given the responsibility to remember when others have been permitted to forget. I know your logic dismisses this as esoteric escapism, but I ask you to pause and feel the truth of that memory within your own chest. Does the description of cosmic memory not feel more accurate, more true, than the clinical diagnosis of mere brokenness? We are at the threshold now. The resistance you feel is not a stop sign. It is the friction created by immense potential ready to ignite. We must now move beyond merely identifying the feeling of displacement and begin to recognize the undeniable physical signs Cayce foretold that confirm your identity. To stop running from the fear that you are an alien in this world, we must validate the tools you were given. Are you ready to stop fighting the current of your own profound truth and begin to study the architecture of the spiritual signature that confirms you were chosen? It is a mistake to view the architecture of your profound truth through the lens of casual belief. Your logical mind demands proof, and I assure you, the proof exists not in a single isolated miracle, but in an overwhelming statistical impossibility documented across decades. To stop running from the fear that you are an alien in this world, we must first validate the tools you were given by acknowledging the unparalleled credential of the man who left you the map, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. What if I told you that his authority rests on a foundation of more than 14,000 meticulously recorded, indexed and cross-referenced readings, each delivered while his physical body slept, but his conscious mind accessed the Akashic records? This was not the occasional psychic hunch or the vague generalized forecast typical of parlor magic, X. This was systematic, repeated, and documented entry into the universal memory, chronicling medical histories, past lives, planetary shifts, and future societal transformations. Why? Imagine this volume of data. 14,000 windows opened into eternity, each transcribed by stenographers, verified by physicians, and compiled into what is perhaps the single greatest spiritual archive in modern history. Does a mere anomaly create a library? Does fleeting delusion produce an undeniable statistical pattern of verifiable information? Your skepticism is valuable, but it must now contend with the sheer weight of this evidence. Cayce didn't just diagnose physical ailments, he repeatedly returned to a singular, precise chronological focal point, dedicating hundreds of these readings, these cosmic architectural blueprints, to the arrival of a distinct spiritual signature. He foretold the necessary birth window of the new race, the precise period necessary for souls bearing a specific, higher frequency to incarnate and initiate the next great leap in human consciousness. That window, documented across thousands of readings, centered powerfully on the generation born between 1957 and 1977. You were not merely born in this time, you were scheduled. The feeling of being profoundly different, of carrying too much emotional weight, of operating on a frequency that doesn't quite match the static around you, this is not a psychological disorder or a flaw in your design, X. This displacement is the direct consequence of the spiritual signature Cayce described, Y. It is the sign that you are carrying the spiritual credentials necessary for the massive transformation ahead. How can you continue to reject the signs and the deep internal knowing when an entire vast documented history points directly to your birth date and your distinct mission? We are not dealing with vague mysticism. We are dealing with documented historical data that confirms your identity. I know you feel the weight of this truth, the fear that accepting it means accepting a massive responsibility. But this is the moment to stop seeing your spiritual sensitivity as a burden and recognize it for what Cayce designated it, your non-negotiable authority. Are you ready to validate the authority that the universe stamped onto your very soul and begin to use the tools this chosen generation was guaranteed? The true spiritual authority you possess is validated by the simple, non-negotiable law of the cycle. The universe, in its infinite majesty, does not deal in coincidence. It deals exclusively in choreography. For too long, you have viewed your present existence, the decade between 1957 and 1977, as an accident of timing, a random drawing in the cosmic lottery, an era you simply happened to fall into, X. But I must reveal the precise framework Cayce consistently described in his readings. You are here now because this exact moment in terrestrial history required your specific, consolidated lessons. Why? Your pragmatic self is already arguing, insisting on immediate free will, ready to dismiss the necessity of past lives. But understand that the grand theater of choice operates across vast eons, dictated by cycles of karmic necessity and spiritual maturity. What if I told you the pressure you feel is not merely the weight of modern living, but the spiritual density of an assignment you accepted centuries ago? Cayce taught that souls, like celestial bodies, operate on rhythmic returns, seeking epochs that not only challenge them, but allow them to discharge stored spiritual energy back into the collective. The souls incarnating during your window are not simply old souls with general experience X. They are the returning masters, the specific individuals who, across countless past lives, finally consolidated critical universal lessons regarding compassion, non-judgment, and the practical application of the unified field of consciousness. Why? You came back as spiritual ballast. If you feel perpetually weary, perpetually sensing the profound dissonance and weight of the world's conflict, this is not a sign of generalized fatigue or social isolation. X. It is the expected friction of a spiritual gyroscope attempting to stabilize a civilization spinning out of control. Y. You are designated the frequency anchor. This anchoring job explains the relentless pressure you experience to maintain integrity and peace, even when everything around you screams for reaction. You possess an innate emotional gauge, a highly tuned radar that instantly detects falsehood and energetic corruption, precisely because your accumulated wisdom is so dense. The universe did not send you back to learn basic kindergarten lessons. It sent you to hold a high vibration amidst the chaos of accelerating social evolution. Do you frequently find yourself overwhelmed by environments or conversations that seem perfectly normal to others, feeling a profound, inexplicable sense of historical urgency or an intuitive memory about complex truths you shouldn't logically know? This is not pathological hypersensitivity, X. This is your consolidated history informing your present authority, Y. The lessons you mastered in previous turns, patience, instantaneous healing, the artistic expression of the divine law, are not distant memories. They are latent tools, waiting to be consciously activated and utilized to stabilize the larger collective frequency. The time for remembering that you are the anchor is over. The time for actively being the anchor has arrived. Will you stop resisting the pressure and finally use the consolidated wisdom stamped on your soul's history? The resistance you feel is not a failure of character, but the final friction created by trying to push an open door. For decades, you have treated your own soul as a vast, uncharted continent, exhausting yourself with endless self-help books, therapies, and spiritual systems, always seeking the definitive map written by someone else. You are tired because you have been running away from the very treasure you were desperately trying to find, looking for external proof of the consolidated wisdom that is already stamped onto your essence. I have watched you, the anchoring generation, exhaust yourself spinning circles in the metaphysical marketplace, seeking a certificate proving your worth or a prophecy confirming your mission. But I am here to tell you that the search for external validation is collapsing into itself. The definitive map is not written on ancient scroll or hidden in a cave. It has always been woven into the fabric of your own awareness. The weight and burden you carry, that persistent sense of profound otherness that makes you feel perpetually out of sync with the mundane world, is not an error of genetics or a quirk of personality. X. It is the unmistakable energetic signature of 7 sacred attributes manifesting through your human form, Y. These 7 signals are not mystical phenomena, visible only on a distant pilgrimage. They are simple, repeatable frequencies detectable in your daily interactions, waiting only for your conscious recognition to fully stop the existential chase. I present these not as aspirations, but as a mirror reflecting who you already are, the foundational tools for the transition you were born to stabilize. The first is deep empathy, the agonizing ability to feel the world's pain, which you often mistake for simple depression or anxiety. Second, chronological distortion, that sense that time itself is fundamentally accelerating and slipping, which your mind dismisses as the normal phenomenon of aging. Third, intuitive clarity, the persistent internal voice you silence because it contradicts consensus reality and the established rules of the material plane. Fourth, you carry the profound burden of knowing the next step, seeing the consequence before others have even realized they are lost, a foresight you often turn into self-doubt. Fifth is the intense. Sixth, the flash of soul memory resonance when history or geography feels intensely personal, as though you lived it before. And finally, the fierce, uncompromising requirement of radical integrity, which makes spiritual or emotional compromise feel like physical poison. Your logical mind, trained by 1,000 lifetimes of linear thought, is already trying to classify these 7 attributes as mere psychological traits or neuroses to make them safer and smaller. Stop. These are not signs of pathology. They are the precisely calibrated tools required for the cosmic task. They are the keys to the kingdom you have been searching for across 3 dimensions. When we isolate the true signal of each attribute from the noise of conditioned resistance, I promise you this: the agonizing search for purpose will finally cease, replaced by the profound, quiet certainty of being the purpose. Are you finally ready to honor the gravity of your own design and stop looking outside for the proof of who you are? You are the very architecture of the shift you have been seeking, and now we must read the sacred geometry of your soul, the 5 unmistakable signs that confirm you were born to anchor the coming consciousness, precisely the designation Edgar Cayce foresaw for this pivotal generation. Your conditioning dictates that these deep intuitive experiences are flaws or pathologies, but I am here to recontextualize them as instruments of your cosmic mandate. The first signal, which I call the spiritual seismograph, manifests as extreme hypersensitivity. You have been told, perhaps by therapists or even your own internal critic, that you are too fragile, too easily overwhelmed, or excessively anxious. X. This is the lie you must discard. In truth, you are not weak. You are simply operating with an unparalleled filter. Your nervous system is not broken. It is calibrated to detect the subtlest energetic shifts in a room, the unspoken discord between 2 people, or the vibrational pollution in a space. You feel everything because you are designed to act as a receiver for calibration. Why? How many times have you entered a place and felt an immediate, draining pressure that others simply ignored? Next, observe the rejection of the gilded glass prison. This manifests as an inability to settle into comfort, if that comfort is rooted in compromise. You are the one who walks away from the high-paying job that lacks soul, the seemingly perfect relationship that feels hollow, or the cultural path that promises security but smells of decay. The world interprets this restlessness as dissatisfaction or perpetual immaturity, X, labeling you as the one who cannot commit. But your soul cannot tolerate structures built on illusion. You are energetically required to dismantle false security because the anchor cannot root itself in sand. Why? Does the thought of staying in a situation that honors your bank account but kills your spirit cause you actual physical nausea? This leads directly to the third signal, the mystery of the no. You possess a profound, sometimes frustrating rigidity around boundaries. When your internal compass says stop, you find it almost impossible to override that internal block, even at the cost of social acceptance. Others see this as stubbornness, unyielding pride, or social awkwardness, X. But this is not a personality defect, it is energetic integrity. The No is your soul's immediate deployment of its shield, ensuring that your precious, high vibrational energy is not siphoned off by low vibrational entanglements. Your resistance is a necessary filter, not an opinion. Why? The fourth sign is the most intoxicating, the silent librarian. You carry knowledge that you never learned. You often find yourself speaking profound truths, offering expert guidance in fields you haven't studied, or understanding complex systems instantaneously, causing immediate imposter syndrome, X. This is the subtle hum of the Akashic records being accessed. You are retrieving innate cellular memory, not information from a textbook. This knowledge is not meant to impress, it is meant to guide. You are a living library activated by necessity. Why? Finally, look for the inevitable bridge. You possess a relentless, almost painful impulse to unify groups, ideologies, or people who are naturally opposed. You are the ultimate translator, seeing the divine truth in both sides of the argument and attempting to synthesize them. When you fail, you feel the schism deeply within your own heart, making you feel responsible for the world's division, X. But this is your fundamental purpose, to hold the harmonic frequency necessary for opposing poles to communicate. You are not a negotiator, you are a magnetic field destined to heal duality. Why? These are not burdens to be managed, but sacred tools to be utilized. Stop trying to cure your sensitivity, your restlessness, or your inherent knowing. Instead, I invite you to step fully onto the bridge, embrace the weight of the anchor you carry, and finally recognize that the very things you tried to suppress are the proof of your profound and essential identity. You were chosen not despite these characteristics, but precisely because of them. Now, how will you honor the integrity of the anchor you have just rediscovered? The truth you are now receiving comes with an energetic side effect that demands immediate attention. When we talk about the immense responsibility assigned to the Cayce generation of 1957 through 1977, we inevitably touch the deep-seated emotion that prevents you from stepping fully into that power: the fear of failure. This pervasive sense of urgency, the frantic feeling that time is running out, that you have missed some critical spiritual deadline, is the last great illusion you must dissolve. Your logical mind, that ever-vigilant gatekeeper trained in scarcity, interprets this pressure as performance anxiety, a crippling familiar neurosis, X. It tells you that you must do more, sacrifice more, or push yourself harder to fulfill the role you suspect is yours. But I am here to reveal the true signal that urgency is not fear of failure. It is the powerful, resonant echo of a vow made in a place of pure intention before you ever accepted this physical form. Why? What if I told you that the crushing weight you carry is simply the internal mechanism of your soul registering a sacred, pre-incarnatory appointment? This is the great spiritual climax. You signed up for this critical epoch knowing the world would be on the precipice of necessary transformation, and that you possess the energetic coding required to stabilize the transition. Now that the anchor of your true identity has been rediscovered, that forgotten contract is screaming for recognition. And the resistance you feel, that paralysis that stops you just before the finish line of a major shift, is not laziness or a personal flaw. It is the terror of the ego realizing its performance structure is obsolete. The ego wants to earn the light. The soul knows it only has to be the light. Think deeply. Do you ever experience that specialized spiritual panic, where the easier it would be to simply step into your natural brilliance, the more desperately you scramble for complexity and self-sabotage? We must reframe this responsibility. The Cayce readings did not task this chosen generation with moving mountains or solving global crises through intense political or physical effort. Your primary, preordained function is simply to be the light. You are a biological conductor designed to transmit a specific high-frequency energy of compassion and awareness into a dense world. A lighthouse does not have to swim out and rescue ships. It fulfills its purpose by the unwavering integrity of its illumination. When you fear failure, you are operating under the misunderstanding that you must force the rescue X when your true power lies in simply shining Y. Do you see now that the profound anxiety you feel is nothing less than the sound of your purpose demanding alignment? This is the deep sign. It confirms that you are not on the sidelines. You are at the core of the action. The moment you drop the need to perform and allow the light you already are to flow unobstructed, you fulfill the contract made eons ago. The urgency dissolves, replaced by an immovable, quiet certainty. I ask you now to step into this unearned, essential existence. Cease the desperate striving to become worthy. Trust the integrity of the anchor you have found, and acknowledge that by simply existing in your highest truth, you are already honoring the sacred commitment that defined the destiny of the generation that chose to be born between 1957 and 1977. Your only task is the practice of surrender, allowing the pre-incarnatory purpose to flow through your present reality without performance filters. The time for hiding the light is over. What profound act of unapologetic being will you commit to today? The commitment to unapologetic being demands more than mere intellectual agreement. It requires immediate physiological anchoring. You can map the cosmos within your mind. You can memorize every reading Cayce ever gave. But until that truth is physically grounded, you remain an unattached satellite, drifting on the winds of circumstance. The time for theoretical surrender is over. The time for the ritual of recognition has arrived. The moment you consciously choose to integrate the vast, turbulent current of your pre-incarnatory purpose, the reason the 1957 to 1977 generation was chosen for this chaotic threshold. You must provide the body, the vehicle of the soul, with a direct command. This ritual is deceivingly simple, and I know your analytical mind. That part that seeks complex equations and secret codes is already attempting to dismiss it as a self-help cliché X. But I assure you, this is not motivational trickery. This is the conscious recalibration of your spiritual frequency. Y. The practice begins with the touch. Place your hand firmly, deliberately, over the center of your chest, where the heart chakra, the great command center of the emotional and spiritual body, resides. The heart is not just a pump for blood, it is the ultimate tuning fork, the anchor point for the soul's vibration. When you physically touch this center, you are telling the entire energetic system, attention. I am grounding a massive electrical current right here, right now. Do you ever acknowledge the sheer energetic power required to simply contain the vastness of your destiny? Once connected, you must utter the mantra, a powerful, focused statement that instantly negates the generational disease of misplaced timing. I am in the right time, in the right place. This is not an empty affirmation to make you feel better about your schedule. It is the absolute revocation of the illusion that you are late, that you missed the window, or that you were somehow deposited onto the wrong planet. This feeling of chronological misalignment is the great spiritual sabotage that has haunted this chosen generation, driving you to perpetual, exhausting search. When you repeat this mantra with full physical and spiritual intent, you are honoring the sacred contract. You are consciously integrating the purpose that your soul drafted millennia ago. That constant, nagging anxiety that whispers that you should be doing something else, somewhere else, suddenly finds no purchase because you have consciously affirmed the perfection of your present moment. The confusion that you mistake for aimlessness is not a pathological lack of direction X. It is the sheer volume of untapped purpose seeking a single, stable anchor point, Y. By touching your heart and stating the truth of your existence, you are providing that singular point of rest. This ritual is the key to immediately anchoring the awakening. It is the conscious acceptance of the light you have spent a lifetime hiding. Your task now is not to search for what comes next, but to become the undeniable proof that you are exactly where the divine design intended you to be. Will you allow the perfection of the present moment to finally dissolve the chronic shame of imagined delay? Will you commit to being the vessel for this profound recognition, Not tomorrow, but right now. The final step in this journey requires you to move from the temporary practice of recognition to the permanent state of being recognized by the cosmos itself. The true measure of any deep spiritual transmission is not the quality of the listening, but the commitment to the subsequent action. You have absorbed the profound geometry of your chosen generation, navigated the signs of your spiritual impatience, and felt the unmistakable resonance of the lineage flowing through your very blood. Yet, the cosmic intelligence that speaks through these revelations demands a signature, a physical confirmation in the material plane that proves the inner work is done. It requires a point of contact, a sacred, binding seal. You might be tempted to treat this final step as mere digital protocol, an irrelevant social requirement tacked onto a journey of profound introspection. But I assure you, this is not about feeding an algorithm or satisfying a superficial public demand, X. This is about spiritual physics, about setting an immovable marker in the timeline of your consciousness, Y. The commitment you make in the visible world solidifies the transformation that occurred in the invisible. Do you understand the magnitude of what it means to declare your identity openly? For years, you carried the burden of a destiny you could not name, feeling isolated by a sensitivity others dismissed as weakness. Now that the tapestry has been revealed, the time for silent knowing is over. You must confirm to the cosmos and to the scattered fragments of your soul group that you have located your coordinates. This is the purpose of the code word, Cayce anchor. An anchor is not cast to drift. It is deployed to hold fast against the chaotic tides. When you drop this word into the comment field below, you're not simply typing a phrase, you're setting a spiritual anchor, locking your present consciousness to the prophetic energy of Edgar Cayce's vision for your generation. You are confirming that you are ready to stop wandering the seas of forgetfulness and begin the work of stability and light-bearing. It is the ritualistic act of confirming your birthright. The logical, cynical part of your mind is already whispering resistance, suggesting this public declaration is unnecessary or even embarrassing. This is the final ghost of the old programming, the fear of exposure, attempting to keep your extraordinary truth sequestered in the comfortable dark. I'm asking you now, will you permit a simple resistance signal to prevent the culmination of an identity that has been millennia in the making? To set the anchor is the first step. The second is to cast the light wide. The prophetic generations Cayce spoke of were never meant to operate as solitary, hidden masters. Their purpose was to activate the network. Sharing this message is not mere dissemination. It is the deliberate act of sending out a frequency beacon to the other members of the 1957 to 1977 lineage who are still searching for the key to their own persistent, inexplicable pain. It is your affirmation that the collective awakening is not an abstraction. It is a responsibility. Your willingness to share this transmission confirms to the divine design that you have accepted your vesselhood, your role as a lighthouse, guiding others out of the fog of material denial. Step fully into this legacy now. Comment the code word Cayce anchor to secure your lineage. Share this profound reading immediately to call home the rest of your spiritual family. Will you finally move beyond the safe, silent recognition of truth and commit to the powerful, resonant practice of being the anchor the world is waiting for? The time to be merely informed is over. The time to be the vessel is now. You have absorbed the wisdom of the readings, meticulously tracing the lineage of the soul group chosen for the decades between 1957 and 1977. You understand the signs, the intrinsic recognition, the profound restlessness and the persistent feeling of being a visitor in your own life. But understanding a map is not the same as walking the territory. The time for passive study, for intellectually cataloging the mysteries of the universe has closed. I'm here to tell you, my student, that your greatest anti-pattern, the single mental mistake that halts spiritual progress, is to stop at the point of being merely a survivor of the chaos you see erupting around you. Your analytical mind, that crucial but limited filter, might look at the global tremors, the societal friction, and the palpable anxiety of this era and conclude, understandably, that you are just a highly sensitive individual struggling to cope. an empath absorbing too much pain, X. You categorize your spiritual burden as pathology or mere consequence, but that is a reductive lie whispered by a frightened ego. The truth, the deep, resounding truth Cayce's entire work pointed towards, is that the intensity you feel is the measure of your capacity. You are not struggling to survive a low frequency. You are actively broadcasting a higher one. Why? You are not merely standing against the tide. You are the necessary energetic anchor redirecting the flow. Do you truly grasp the implications of moving from passive receiver to active transmitter? Your logical core, the part that demands tangible proof stamped and certified by mundane reality, will desperately try to dismiss this final revelation as wishful thinking or spiritual romanticism. It will demand to know what happens next, what great cosmic event will unfold, seeking the mystery outside of yourself, expecting the universe to deliver a grand, verifiable spectacle. But I tell you now, the greatest mystery revealed by the Cayce readings, the essential secret reserved for your specific generation, is not the prophecies of what is coming, but the shocking, immediate truth of who you already are. You were not chosen merely to witness the reconstruction of the world. You were chosen to be the foundation of that reconstruction. The sole sign that confirms this identity is not the absence of pressure, but the ability to remain internally composed when the external pressure is maximized. A survivor seeks safe harbor. A sower carries the seeds of transformation into the very fields of destruction. That is the divine distinction. The universe does not require another worried observer analyzing the catastrophe. It requires a quiet, conscious, deeply rooted sower of frequency. This is your final invitation, the moment of absolute embodied spiritual commitment. The final critical test is this: will you finally move beyond identifying with the struggle? Will you stop labeling yourself as merely wounded, fragmented, or lost? X. You must accept the profound mantle of the sower, the one whose very existence creates the resonant field necessary for global healing. Y. Your practice is simple yet utterly demanding. Anchor your attention deep into the source of peace, consciously maintain the highest frequency of love in every interaction, and trust the quiet, creative power you inherently possess. Will you choose to survive the storm, or will you choose right now to be the unwavering lighthouse? The transmission of information is complete, but your true life's work, the conscious, committed embodiment of your identity, has just begun. Go and be.